This video is going to be a review of if statements. If statements tend to be the most challenging concept in Excel, so I'm going to make several videos on this. And in the Chapter 7 if practice exercise, each sheet is more challenging than the previous one. So we'll start with this one just to go over the basics. This is a worksheet that contains really 9 rows of data. This is the worksheet. And this information down here is informational on how to do if statements, and this is more informational data on how to do if statements. So what an if statement is you ask a question of the data and the answer has to either be true or false. So if the answer is true, you do one thing, and if the answer is false, you do something else. There's never an answer of maybe. It has to either be, are you a Colorado native? Yes, you get a native bumper sticker. No, you get an I got here as fast as I could bumper sticker. There's no other option. Every single question has to have a true option and a false option. In this case, this is going to be what my question is and my true and my false. I color coded these. So green is the question. This is called a flowchart. This is a decision diamond. If the total in row 7, which hasn't been calculated yet, is at least as high as goal in J1, that's my question. If the answer is true, I multiply the total in row 7 by high bonus in J2. If the answer is false, I multiply the total in row 7 by low bonus in J3. So every single answer here has to either be the total is at least 2,000, I get 15% times the total, and if it's not at least 2,000, I multiply 1% by the total. When you're doing your if statement and figuring out whether your answer is true or false, every if statement needs to have conditional operands. And that's what these are. So what this means is I have to ask a question where I say, is this equal to something? And if I do, I use an equal sign. If it's not equal, I use a less than and a greater than sign. This would maybe be for, is temperature not equal 98.6? And that would be anything other than 98.6. This would include anything up to 98.59 and anything 98.61 and up. So not equal is anything other than the exact value. More than is the grade over 100 or more than 100 would be the greater than sign. Greater than is shift period. Is your age at least 21 would be the greater than and equal to sign. Is this person's weight below 100 pounds, then it would be the less than sign. That would be anything up to 99.9, but not including 100. If I said you get up to 20% off, so let's create a formula to see how it works. First thing I'm going to do is calculate the totals in row 7, so I select all my values, including my total row, hit AutoSum. Now my bonus is my if statement. So we'll go through each value just to determine what our answer would be. Is 1,300 at least 2,000? No. So you multiply 1,300 times 1%. Next cell, is 1,700 at least 2,000? No. Multiply the 1,700 times 1%. Is 2,100 at least 2,000? Yes. So then you do the pink box, multiply total, 2,100, times high bonus, which is 15%. Is 1,600 at least 2,000? No. False. Multiply total, 1,600 by low bonus, 1%. Is 2,000 at least 2,000? That would be at least, would be greater than or equal to. That includes the value. Yes. So that would be multiply the total, 2,000 times high bonus, 15%. Is 2,400 at least 2,000? Yes. Multiply 2,400 times 15%. So to create an if statement, the easiest thing to do is to use the if statement wizard, and this is how you do that. I click on the cell where the answer is going to be. I click on FX. The category for an if statement is logical, and then it gives you all these formulas. If tells you what the formula is. And here we have the logical test, value of true, value of false. This is where I'm saying green is the logical test, if total is at least as high as goal. Value of true is what's pink on mine, multiply total row by high bonus. Value of false is what's yellow in my example, multiply total row 7 by low bonus. So every if statement has to have a question, a value of true, and a value of false. So my logical test is the total for January at least is greater than or equal to, so you can't say at least, you have to use these operands right here. Greater than or equal to J1. And then click in the next box. If that's true, then you multiply the total value times, use your operators, plus, minus, times, divide, high bonus. And if it's false, you multiply the total times low bonus. So I'm color coding it. I'm saying here's my if statement, here's my true, here's my false, here's my if statement, here's my true, here's my false. I think it's easier to start this way because then you already have if statement, true, false in 3 separate rows, and then you just plug them in here into the wizard. This will tell you what the answer is. If this says false, that just means in this case B7 is not at least 2000, so don't think that means the formula is wrong. That just means in this case the answer is false. And hit OK. And so since 1300 is not at least 2000, multiply 1300 times 1%, which gives you 13. And if I copy this formula across, I get errors because if you remember, when I copy formulas across, my formula right now is equals if B7 greater than or equal to J1. If I go one cell to the right, it's equals if C7, which is total, greater than or equal to K1. There is nothing in K1. So by default, the formula goes to the next column, but that's not what I want because there's nothing in K1 or L1 or M1. So what I need to do is make the cell addresses that should not change absolute. So J1, J2, and J3 should not change when I copy the formula across or copy them down. So what you do is click on the cell addresses that should not change and make them absolute. F4 will make them absolute. If you don't have the F4 key on your keyboard, then you need to type in the $signs. You might be able to do FN, which is function, and hit F4, and that might work too. So now my formula changes to equals if, parentheses, B7 greater than or equal to J1. This is my question, comma, if that's true, B7 times J2, J2 is absolute, that's my true right here, comma, false, B7 times J3, J3 is absolute, that's my false. So the syntax is equals if, parentheses, what is my question, comma, what do I do if it's true, comma, what do I do if it's false? Again, you have to have all three. Actually, I'll show you later a time where you don't have to have all three, but generally speaking, you need a question and a true and a false. And then I click OK. I copy this new and improved formula across. So is 1300 at least 2000? No. So it gets 1300 times 1%. Is 1700 at least 2000? No. So it gets 1700 times 1%. Is 2100 at least 2000? Yes. So then the answer is 2100 times 15%. Is 1600 at least 2000? No. So the answer is 1600 times 1%. Is 2000 at least 2000? Yes. So the answer is 2000 times 15%. Notice this is greater than or equal to. If you said greater than, then this wouldn't have picked up the right answer and it would have come back with 1% bonus instead of 15% bonus, and your person who should have gotten the big bonus would be very upset with you. And then for June, is 2400 at least 2000? Yes. So it's 2400 times 15%. So the easiest way to do the formula, I think, is to use the if statement wizard, but you could always just type in the formula this way. And it's equals if, parentheses, what is your question, comma, what do you do if it's true, comma, what do you do if it's false? One way is not better than the other, they're all just different. And again, most if statements use absolute addresses because these values over here should not move when I copy the formula across or if I copy the formula down. That's an overview of if statements.